Nighttime on Still Waters. This is NB 506812, narrowcasting into the night from somewhere on Britain's waterways. February 6th, Friday. A stern hatch slides back and a head appears. "Has it been raining all day?" I am asked. "Just about," I reply, and we laugh as I splash past. One of the puddles in the field goes up to Maggie's tummy. It's been a day of heavy skies and thin rains, and now the night is settled. Raindrops tap out uncertain messages in Morse on the towpath's fallen leaves. Lights flicker, fracture and split on the wind-ploughed water. And this is the narrowboat Erica, narrowcasting into a wet February midwinter night, to you, wherever you are. Greetings, I was hoping you'd come. It's not the weather to be outside, so come inside, where the cabin is snug, and the stove is warm, and the kettle has sung out its welcoming song. So mind your head as you come in. Shake off your wet coat. There's a seat waiting especially for you. And welcome aboard. February, filled with grey skies, drips along the canal and towpath. Winter-bare twigs and branches weep, and ewes, heavy with lamb and drenched fleece, stand and stare, sad-eyed and patient. I've recently come across another anthology of the year to add to my collection of almanacs. Listeners of old will know how partial I am to an almanac. This one's called A Year in Song and Story, a celebration of seasons, and it's compiled by Leah Leendertz, who's been publishing almanacs over the past few years. This is a little different and quite fun. And one thing I particularly like about it is that she includes a lot of the traditions and cultural influence of the Romanies in it, something which is still often overlooked. Leah starts her section on February with the usual listing of the different names given to the month, and notes the links between the Latin Februa, the Roman festival of purification or purging, and the Latin month of Februarius, in which the festival occurred. However, she also goes on to observe that in Romany, the month is called Bita kaulo munthos. As tempting as it might be to translate it as the bitter cold month, Bita kaulo munthos in fact means little black month. An alternative Romany name is Caule staua circe, meaning dark 4 weeks. The use of kaulo here, meaning black, doesn't seem to imply anything particularly negative. Leah points out that the root word kaul, or black, appears frequently in Romany language, and is even used self-referentially to describe themselves, with kaulesco, meaning Romany man, and Cailleach, meaning Romany woman. And Leah suggests that this is possibly a reference to their darker skins and characteristic raven black hair. The meaning is therefore most probably in reference to the long dark nights of this short month. And this year, the little black month has arrived wrapped in water. Following a very wet January, February has begun at least, with the promise to live up to its old reputation of February Philadyke. I know that in the past years I've reflected on good old Miles Hadfield's observation that despite its reputation of being wet and filling dikes, February is traditionally one of the driest months. Well, this year, this February seems to be playing to its reputation. Turning to John Clare, which is always a good thing to do at the beginning of a month, while sloshing along the towpath mud pools, his words ring in my ear. Overhead the clouds are dull, underfoot the roads are full of mire and sludge, and water too, that slushes in the ploughman's shoe, and spatters from the hasty horse that has the meadow's floods to cross. He might have been writing about November at the time, but it captures well this February. And Maggie and I slip and slide from quagmire to quagmire along the towpath, where, less than half a year's turning, I was filled with such disquiet at the bank sides being so deeply cracked and bone dry. And with cat-like precision, Maggie delicately tries to pick her way around the deeper troughs as best she can. However, towards the end of the walk, even she has given up and splashes through the glutinous sucking pools of watery mud. Once more we're running out of towels to dry her down. They hang from the hooks above the stove and steam as they dry. Gumboots drip soily rivulets onto the stern deck, and coats hang awaiting the next foray, and when they're too wet for anything, they weep and drip in the shower. And I feel some sort of camaraderie under fire with the author and politician Horace Walpole, who once wrote, 26th of February, 1768. We're drowning again for the second winter, and hear nothing but floods and desolation. The fields adjacent to the canal are waterlogged, pot-marked with sheep hoof and boot print. The ducks seek out the drier, or at least less waterlogged spots upon which to perch and preen and catch the fleeting moments of sun. The other day I saw a moorhen chase away a female mallard, with a cacophony of ill-tempered shrieks and a fountain of unsettled water. I've always heard that they've had quite a feisty reputation, but I've never actually seen it before. They tend to be rather demure and deferential, generally preferring to move out of the way when ducks approach, well, around here at least. But despite appearances, a wet February is not always a bad thing. Ruth Binney, in her book Wise Words and Country Ways Weather Law, records the following piece of advice. If in February there be no rain, they hay won't goody, nor be the grain. All other months of the year most heartily curse a fine February. There's a clump of snowdrops out on the road above us. But I'm mostly enjoying the emergence of the vivid emerald of thickening new growth along the towpath and hedgerows. Couchgrass, cow parsley, young dock, confident and swaggering, lords and ladies, plantain nettle. Signs of something stirring, largely unseen and all the more important for that. And the rich burgundy of the alders warms the damp chill of being outside. Catkins hang like pennants of hope from alder, birch and hazel. It's been a while since I've spotted a heron. I'm assuming that they're busy about their nests right now. And the aerial combat over the fields between raptors and crows have become a little more in earnest. With the slow advance of daylight and its distant promise of spring comes the serious business of establishing once more your foothold on life. Gone are the showy and at times lazily half-hearted displays of acrobatics of the summer and autumn. Hunting needs to be done, even over waterlogged fields, and resources are getting scarce. Nests and brooding mothers need to be protected. Skyborne encounters tend to be short, sharp, and pointed. Tempers are frayed. Unambiguous messages are sent, and unambiguous messages are received. No time to be wasted in play and meaningless theatrics. Softer days and more playful skies await, but now's not that time. Perhaps we humans are not the only ones looking across the fields and woodlands for the first signs of spring. Thank you so much for all the messages and comments that I received following the last episode, and particularly about passing that 200th episode milestone. And I want to begin with a special welcome and greetings to Pamela Wamala. Thank you so much for your email, Pamela, and I'm delighted that you found the podcast and enjoying it. And thank you also to Vanessa, the Mindful Narrowboat vlog, for pointing you in our direction. And thank you also for your lovely emails and voicemail, Margaret. I love that 7th word, and I'm planning to return to it in the immediate future. I also love that quote from Victoria Beata that you sent, that it takes a very particular kind of bravery to know when something has served you well and to thank it by letting it go. I'm sending you every good wish for your writing. As I say, I'm going to be returning to the 7th word very soon. And over on YouTube, thank you also to Captain Bugwash and to G. Taylor on your congratulations that we reached the 200th episode. It's lovely having you with us. And also, thank you to John Mcloughlin. And over on Instagram, thank you also so much for all your lovely words and congratulations. So greetings to Vanessa from the Mindful Narrowboat vlog. Vanessa, I've been blown away by how beautiful the Leeds and Liverpool Canal is. Your recent mooring looked to be almost perfect. Also, thank you to Life with Cadbury, Sherry Rauch, the Narrowboat Poles, Reality Records, Amanda McKains, and MJ Brasso. And also on Instagram, hello and welcome to Kate, the Towpath Hermit. First of all, Kate, I really love your boat. Is it wooden hulled? It's so full of character. It's lovely. And secondly, Kate dropped me a line to say that she was currently moored opposite where I was born. And she writes, "It's like I'm standing in the echo of your childhood. There's a kind of magic in the overlapping timelines. And the waters whisper their regards." I found those words so moving, Kate. Thank you. They're really beautiful. Over on Facebook, greetings and thanks to Jason and Karen, and they've now put in an offer on a boat and are currently waiting their survey. So how exciting, and please let us know how it all goes. Hello and thanks also to Tracy Thomas, to Julie Kitchen, Deb Moon Mountford and Jean Mann. And yes, it really is strange to get to the 200th milestone. In some ways, it feels as if I've been doing these podcasts all my life, whilst in another way, like I've only just started, and the time really has flown. I must also mention and say hello to Captain Arlo over on Blue Sky. And on Masterton, thank you to Sem Raug, Hannon Cohen and to Mine Shambles. Hello also to Sal, who wondered if we'd ever met Paul and Anthony on Morningstar, to which the answer is yes, but fleetingly, as is so often the case in the canal. We were actually tied up, and Paul and Dexter, it was a few years back, came past, and we shared a few shouted greetings. I think Anthony was at work at the time. And a number of the comments also related to either questions or responses to my reflection in the last episode about life in a boat. I've realised that I'm not going to have time to cover them properly in this episode, so I'm going to return to them in the next one. And it was also lovely to hear back from Lee, who sent me a couple of her favourite poems, or poems that were currently chimed with her when she was also reflecting about her life up there among the mountains. And I'd love to share them, but I think they're going to fit really neatly when I return to the second part of that reflection upon life afloat. So I'm going to store them safely away for then. And all that remains now for me to do is to say a huge thank you to all of our Lochwheelers for supporting this podcast. They are Anna McKellar, Susan Baker, Mind Shambles, Clare Hollingsworth, Kevin B., Fleur and David Mcloughlin, Lois Raphael, Tanya Yorgay, Andrea Hansen, Chris Hines, Chris and Alan on the narrowboat The Land of Green Ginger, Captain Arlo, Rebecca Russell, Alison on the narrowboat Mucker, Derek and Pauline on Silver Fox, Anna V., Orange Cookie, Mary Keane, Tony Rutherford, Arabella Holtzapfel, Rory with MJ and Kayla, the narrowboat Precious Jet, Linda Reynolds-Birkins, Richard Noble, Carol Ferguson, Tracy Thomas, Mark and Tricia Stowe, and Madeline Smith. Thank you. At the beginning of this week, it was St. Bride's or St. Bridget's Day, followed the next day by Candlemas. There's a lot of weather lore associated with this time. If Candlemas be fair and clear, we'll have 2 winters in 1 year. Guess one rhyme. Whilst another says, if Candlemas be fair and bright, winter will have another fight. If on Candlemas Day it be shower and rain, winter is gone and not come again. And one more. As far as the sun shines on Candlemas Day, so far will the snow blow before May. And a final one, which I just love for its specificity. If on February the 2nd the goose finds it wet, the sheep will have grass on March 25th. In fact, there are just too many variants on this theme to include them all, but they all say pretty much the same thing. If the weather on Candlemas Day is dry and sunny, that means winter will return once more. Likewise, if it's damp and rainy, winter has already begun its slow retreat. And this belief that this particular time in the year provides a good augury for coming seasons goes back a really long time. St. Bride's or St. Bridget's and Candlemas Day straddle the older festival of Imbolc, possibly with the aim of replacing that pagan festival with a Christian one. There is a particular story associated with Imbolc that picks up on this theme of being able in some way to predict the end of winter. It features a person called Cailleach, the old woman or the veiled one. She's the goddess of winter in Irish, Manx and Scottish mythology. A terrifying hag-like crone, reputed to be of loathsome and frightening appearance, one-eyed with wild wind-torn cobwebs of hair and an ashen blue face. And she tramps across the hard iced land from Samhain to Imbolc. Everywhere her staff touches the ground freezes. And with shrill banshee cries she commands blizzards and winter storms and bone-scouring winds with her spells. And in her apron, or in some stories within her wicker basket, she carries rocks which she throws upon the land, creating mountains. In Ireland she's attributed with shaping its landscape. She's a creature of storm foam and the crashing of Atlantic waves against rocky cliffs. The Cailleach represents the ferocity and the fearsome strength of winter. One story tells how she snips away at each green shoot that appears above the ground in the hope of extending her reign. But mythological figures are complex and never two-dimensional. The Cailleach also carries with her deep, wild wisdom and the instincts of the mother. Deer look to her for protection and nurture. A popular group of stories about her relate to Imbolc and in particular the weather. The story goes that around this time of year, winter is moving on. The Cailleach, dozing in her home, grows restless as her thin fire to warm her begins to die down. And if it dies down enough for the cold to begin to penetrate, furious, she will get up and tramp abroad, collecting more sticks to fuel her winter fire. And the stories tell us that if Imbolc is bright and dry, this means that the Cailleach has arisen and is going about collecting more firewood. And this in turn means that winter will once more strengthen its grip as the Cailleach's hearth blazes afresh. However, if Imbolc is wet and dull, it means that the Cailleach sleeps on, unheeding of spring's advance and the push of new green growth along the hedge lines. And while she sleeps, spring can strengthen her hold, and winter cannot return. And this year, Candlemas and Imbolc, falling this year on the same day, proved to be mildish but distinctly grey and wet. Does this mean that winter is on its slow retreat? Well, I'm not going to hold my breath. But Imbolc is one of those events that's recently gained popularity once again. And maybe it's just the algorithms, but I've seen a lot of posts about it online. And with it, there seems to be a lot of investment, perhaps understandably being placed in its promise of spring and the retreat of winter gloom this year. And I get the impression it's emotional and psychological as well as natural. We're now roughly halfway between winter solstice and the spring equinox. And the season shift has turned. The tide of light is returning and the sap once more is rising. But we also need to understand that this is midwinter. To hold the promise, but to be patient. I'm not sure whether Imbolc in its original sense was ever about the beginning of spring, as it has sometimes been presented recently. It was always the promise that even in the belly of winter, spring is coming. Don't give up hope. It will return. And attending many of the posts were explanations about from where the term actually derives. And the truth is, like many of the older traditions, we just don't really know. One guess is that it refers to animals, particularly livestock, sheep, goats, cows coming in to milk again. More recent guesses, and they are becoming much more popular, are that they mean in the belly, a reference to this traditionally being the time when ewes are in lamb. And I have to say that I do feel drawn to this explanation. Not because of etymology, but that it fits with the way that I've been feeling. This time, at the heart of winter, and the long dark nights and the dragging chill of dull, shadowless days, this time we're in, midwinter, in winter's belly. It chimes loudly with me at the moment, and every day I make my way through the soggy fields being watched by the cautious eyes of the ewes in lamb. I catch their eye and wonder, what are they feeling? This momentous thing that is happening right inside them. The weight of carrying new life. They might not comprehend it in those terms, although we have no good evidence to suggest that they are not aware that this is what's happening. Their behaviours certainly seem to change. And that life inside, the lamb forming and being nurtured, while outside the relentless rain beats down upon a dark world turning to water. Imbolc, what world will it be that will greet this young life, safely nurtured, until it is fit and ready to emerge? And the sheep continue to graze, nourishing the life forming within them. The rain sweeps in again, washing the hillsides slick with churn and trod. Those wary, cautious eyes watch me, mouths moving continuously like bored adolescents chewing gum. The rain drips off their fringes. Their fleeces cling and sag, heavy and lifeless. Around each foot, muddy pools of water form. And their supple lips grip and pull at the close-cropped grass. Rooks gather and fish for drowning worms, and to pluck stray strands of wool from their backs for their nests. And all the time, inside them, a life, maybe 2, maybe even 3, grows stronger, awaiting to enter this world of storm and water. And right now, I feel a strange affinity with those lambs in the belly, Imbolc, in the belly of winter, awaiting our own births of sorts, being born into this coming year. As I read the different online posts, each celebrating Imbolc and written by someone sharing the darkness of their own uncertain world and longing for the vernal light to once more dawn, I recognize my own experience in them. It's been a long, hard winter for many of us, and the coming year will birth us into a world of which we are so unsure. As lambs yet to be born, nestled in the long darkness of winter's belly, we await for that coming world. A world that, this year, feels brutish, without colour and filled with harsh noise and turmoil. So perhaps that's why, like many, I've been struggling this year. Those familiar dreams and pangs of longing for the softer days of spring, rich with green pastures and warm sunshine, they're still all there, but this winter has brought relentless storm after storm of disquieting news and rumour and hearsay that can unsettle, create uncertainty, and can also so easily give rise to a sense of paralysis and dread. One thing I have learnt is to treat your nighttime fears lightly. Things always look worse in the middle of the night, when your bed becomes filled with the shards of dark thoughts. I think that is the same for winter too. The summer sun has a way of chasing away the winter fears and of putting them in their place. And Imbolc is not so much about the return of spring. It could never be, not balanced as it is halfway between solstice and equinox, deep in the heart of winter. This is Cailleach territory. If you feel her chill in your marrow, that's not surprising. Imbolc could never be anything more than marking this midpoint of winter. And yet, it is. The stories continue to tell us, even when we have grown blind and deaf to the signs all around us in this dripping world, that Imbolc is also a promise, an appeal to trust. The mother in the Cailleach cannot be repressed forever. This can be a harsh, dark time. Yes. Ask the sheep on the hill above us, lying with steaming breaths under the hedges. This is, after all, the Cailleach time. And this year, maybe, so many of us wait in its darkness, filled with apprehension and a sense of foreboding about what the year will bring. Winter can be hard under the Cailleach's weathered eye. But there is also nurturing here too. We are born into the swings and cycles of the seasons. We instinctually know how each one feeds us. Imbolc tells us that winter is not over, not yet, but now is not the time to fight it. Maybe now is the time to lean into it, to read its cues and whispered wisdoms. Take time to close the door again. Turn off the lights. Nest deep in the wisdom beneath your racing thoughts. Listen to the way your breath finds freedom in starlight and birdsong, rain dance and wind howl. Let strong silences speak and deep call out to deep. As restless lambs turning in the belly of their mother as she grazes the thin grass in winter rain, we too can be sustained by these times, wrapped in the mothering belly of winter. Sleep tight, Cailleach. There's no need to be gathering wood today. There's work enough ahead. And we'll be needing your wisdom, born of taproots and briar thorns, more than ever before. This is the narrowboat Erica, signing off for the night and wishing you a very restful and peaceful night, filled with the sweetest of dreams. Good night. Temperature outside 7.6 degrees, inside 21 degrees, humidity 95%, dew point 7 degrees, wind direction south, wind strength 12 miles per hour, barometric pressure 995.3 rising, cloud cover 100%, cloud ceiling 10,000 feet, precipitation 3.3 millimeters, moon phase 64.7% waning gibbous, day length 9 hours 27 minutes, sunset 17:05, sky casting 7:36.